Good everyone. So to start with our lovely event today, we are very proud to introduce you our newly formed corporation named IT2 Corporation, who is openly welcoming aspiring professionals in the business field. And after this event, I hope that you guys will pursue us as the company that will guide you and help you create your new journey with your chosen profession. And we also hope to give you guys an insightful use of your time as of this very moment you are attending this meet. So yeah, to formally start, welcome to our very first webinar with IT2 Corporation that made this all possible. And we are very proud to present that we are a general product-based corporation with a vision as to be the top best quality product and service provider in the Philippines, alongside with our solid mission of utilizing our technology and human resources to produce a top-notch goods and services, and at the same time, contributing a good cause in our global society. So the agenda today is to have a quick discussion about the expenditure cycle, in particularly the purchases and cash disbursement procedure. And to do so, I would like to let you guys know that we are joined by our expert or professionals, including myself in our very own department. So first, we have Miss Meneses, our expert in conceptual system, and she will guide you guys on the purchasing processing procedure, followed by Miss Agustin, assigned in the cash disbursement. She'll teach you guys how the cash disbursement cycle works, as well as what given departments are involved in the said role. Next, we have Mr. Roddy, our expert in expenditure cycle control, followed by Miss Bulawan, our expert in cash disbursement procedure support. And she'll give you guys the different types of system and its differentiation used in expenditure cycle control all throughout the business processes. And lastly, at your service, I'm your host for today. I'm Mr. Gamba, and I'm your expert in physical system as well as the computer-based purchases and cash disbursement application. So I won't hold you guys for long. Let me now give the floor to our first expert, Ms. Meneses, to teach us what the cycle is all about in the purchasing processing procedure. So go ahead, Ms. Meneses, the floor is yours.
So, good morning, aspiring professionals. I hope you're ready to listen and take this time as your week review webinar before working with us. So, before we discuss the purchases and cash disbursement procedure, let's discuss briefly what is expenditure cycle. The expenditure cycle is a series of business activities that involve acquiring goods and services from external vendors or suppliers. Its purpose is to complete process successfully, including selecting a vendor, placing an order, receiving the goods or services, and making payments to the vendor. And to deeply explain it, I made a chart for you guys, aspiring accountants, to see and fully understand the topic. Next slide, please. So this is the expenditure cycle, and it consists of different subsystems, which are purchasing accounts payable, cash disbursements, payroll, and fixed assets. In this webinar, we will help you to fully understand the purchasing or accounts payable and cash disbursement, since payroll and fixed assets are in the next part, which we will tackle in the next chapter. Now, let's start with the purchasing cycle. Next slide, please. Okay, the purchasing cycle include the tasks involved such as identifying inventory needs, placing the order, receiving the inventory, and recognize liability. Next slide, please. In order for our business to determine which stock to order, how much to order, and when to order it, the first step is for us to track and record our inventories. Along with monitoring purchases, it also keeps track of our sales. And as soon as the need is identified, a distinct purchase requisition will be created for every item in the inventory, leading to several purchase requests being made for a specific vendor. Each purchase order in this kind of system will therefore be linked to one or more purchase requisitions. A purchase requisition is a document that authorizes a purchase transaction, and a valid vendor file is a file containing vendor mailing information. So, when inventories drop to a predetermined reorder point, a purchase requisition is prepared and sent to prepare purchase order function to initiate the purchase process. A purchase order, on the other hand, is a document based on a purchase requisition that specifies item ordered from a vendor or supplier, and then when the open or close purchase order file were done, a copy of purchase order is sent to the vendor. Next slide, please. The next event in the expenditure cycle is the receipt of the inventory. Goods arriving from the vendor are reconciled with a blind copy of the purchase order. So I want to input here the word blind copy. When you heard the blind copy, always remember that it is a purchase order copy that contains no price or quantity information. To proceed, the file containing the supporting documentation required to create an account payable is known as the accounts payable pending file. We also have to wait for the supplier to complete their revenue cycle after we place our order because they are connected to each other. As I said earlier, kasi sa atin, tayo ang umu-order. We are part of the expenditure cycle. And in the part of the supplier, pinaprocess naman niya yung revenue cycle. Kasi sila yung nagpo-provide ng orders natin. So once it happens and the inventory already arrived, this is when we receive the inventory. However, our business sometimes encounter a time lag between placing the order and receiving the inventory. And during this time, the copies of the PO reside in temporary files in various departments. Then, when placing orders already settled and pag meron na tayong legal responsibility or what they call financial obligation, we have to recognize the liability. The transaction is recorded in the purchase journal and posted to the supplier's account in the AP subsidiary ledger. Remember that the inventory valuation method will determine how inventory control will have recorded the receipt of inventories. After recording the liability, the accounts payable clerk transfer all source documents such as the purchase order, the receiving report, and the invoice to the open accounts payable file. This file is organized by payment due date and scanned daily to ensure that debts are paid on the last possible date without missing due dates and losing discounts. Next slide, please. So here, we are going to use a voucher payable system instead of the AP procedures that were covered in the previous section. The accounts payable division uses cash disbursement vouchers under this system, and it keeps a voucher register. Cash disbursement vouchers reduce the amount of checks we produce by allowing us to make multiple payments to the same supplier on a single voucher. And every voucher is entered into the voucher register, which also serve as a record of the firm's account payable liability. The total accounts payable balance for our company is the sum of the unpaid vouchers in the register or those without check numbers and paid dates. And lastly, next slide please. And last step for purchase cycle is posting to general ledger. A general ledger function reconciles the inventory control account and posts the journal voucher to the control accounts for inventory and accounts payable. The journal voucher file is then updated with the authorized journal vouchers. And with this step, the purchase phase of the expenditure cycle is completed. Next slide, please. So this is an example for you guys of the purchasing cycle flowchart. This provides you with a step-by-step breakdown of the purchase system. And you can go over it and see how it relates to our previous discussion. And that's all you need to know about purchasing cycle. If you have questions, don't hesitate to message me and we will address your concern. Thank you for listening, and now let's proceed to cash disbursement to be tackled by one of our experts, which is Miss Agustin. Thank you.
So, once again, good day to our fellow aspiring professionals. For the next topic, I will be talking about the cash disbursement system. Processes the payment of obligations created in the purchase system. The principal objective of this system is to ensure that only valid creditors receive payment and that amounts paid are timely and correct. So, effectively managing cash disbursements is crucial for maintaining financial stability and para ma-ensure na yung company is na meet niya yung financial obligation in a timely and organized manner. So, next slide, please. So here we have the processes for the cash disbursement systems. The first one is the identify liabilities due. The cash disbursements process begins in the AP department by identifying items that have come due. So identifying liabilities due in cash disbursement systems involves recognizing and tracking the various financial obligations that need to be settled with cash. The second one is prepare cash disbursement. The preparation of cash disbursements is a crucial step in this system, involving various activities to ensure accurate and efficient handling of outgoing funds. For each disbursement, the clerk prepares a check and records the check number, dollar amount, voucher number, and other pertinent data in the check register, which is also called the cash disbursements journal. Next slide. The third one is update AP record. Upon receipt of the voucher packet, the AP clerk removes the liability by debiting the AP subsidiary account or by recording the check number and payment date in the voucher register. The last one is the post to general ledger. Supporting documents such as invoices, receipts, and payment authorizations are generated and collected to provide evidence of the transaction. These documents serve as the basis for recording the transaction in the accounting system. So yung mga information na nakapost sa general ledger is ginagamit para makapag-prepare ng financial statements katulad ng income statement at yung balance sheet. These statements provide a snapshot of the company's financial position and yung performance. Next slide. So here we have the cash disbursement system. Ito yung step-by-step process nila. So you can check na lang later. Next slide, please. So for the next topic is all about the cash disbursement system for departments. So these departments work together to ensure that the cash disbursements process is efficient, accurate, and complies with internal policies as well as external regulations. The segregation of duties among these departments helps establish internal controls and minimize the risk of errors or fraudulent activities. Okay, so next slide. So the first department is AP department. So each day, the AP clerk reviews the open vouchers payable or AP file for items due and sends filed vouchers and supporting documents to the cash disbursements department. So this department is responsible for managing and overseeing the payments that an organization makes to its vendors, suppliers, and other creditors. Nagko-contribute din sila para maging accurate yung financial reporting and nagko-comply din sila sa accounting standards. So the next department is cash disbursement department. This department is responsible for managing and executing payments to suppliers, vendors, employees, and other entities to fulfill financial obligations. Sila rin yung responsible para maging efficient and controlled yung processing ng mga payments, ensuring na yung financial obligations ay nakakamit nila in a timely and accurate manner while maintaining yung strong relationships sa mga vendors and yung nag-adhere sa financial regulations. So next slide, please. So here we have again the AP department. So AP plays a crucial role in managing cash flow by strategically timing payments and optimizing discounts. The department collaborates with Treasury and finance teams to align payment schedules with the organization's financial objectives. So accurate record keeping is maintained to reconcile payments and ensure that financial statements accurately reflect the company's liabilities. So regular reconciliation activities help identify and rectify any discrepancies. So the last department is General Ledger Department. This department integrates information from subsidiary ledgers such as accounts payable and payroll into the general ledger. This consolidation ensures that all financial data is accurately reflected in the organization's overall financial records. So, sa context ng cash disbursements, this department ensures compliance with financial regulations and internal policies. They also support internal and external audits by providing accurate and comprehensive financial data. So, next slide. So, here's the summary ng cash disbursement system for the departments. So, yan. Pwede nyo na lang din i-check yan. So, now let's proceed to expenditure cycle controls to be discussed by Mr. Roddy.
Good morning, aspiring professional. So let's talk about expenditure cycle controls. So this section focuses on how a firm can control its expenditure cycle with the main goal of minimizing expenses in order to achieve and maximize its wealth. So there are 6 suggested contractivities that are intended to be managed in order to control the expenditure cycle. So first is the transaction authorization, segregation duties, supervision, accounting records, access, and the last is independent verification. So next slide, please. So let's start with transaction authorization. Wait lang. Transaction, yes. Let's start with transaction authorization. Focusing on purchases subsystem or processing system, first, in order to apply transaction authorization, inventory control is a must. As such function on the monitors inventory levels, formally authorizing replenishment through purchases requisition without such formalizing authorization process. Purchasing of inventories may result to overstock or out of stock as purchasing agent may pursue their own discretion, which such discretion may involve all interests as a result, excessive inventories by of the organization's cash reserves and stock costs, loss of sales, and manufacturing release. Well, under cash disbursement system, no easy or direct payment will be done. Like after purchasing payment will be done the same time as purchase in here AP function authorizes payment via cash disbursement voucher. To make this effective, checks will not be written without explicit authorization such as providing version numbers, service flow for verifying authenticity of checks written. So next slide, please. Uh, let's go to segregation of duties. Applying such contractivity to purchases processing system, it is the best segregate inventory control for the warehouse or from purchasing and inventory custody, as an inventory control keeps detailed records of the asset, while the warehouse custody reconciling records through the physical count of inventory in the warehouse. Make it efficient to know if what has been originally ordered was received in full, and a number of sold inventory match the number of inventories in the warehouse. So if such duties are not segregated, it would be easier for an agent of the firm to whom if the and just record to remain inventories compared to the number of the originally and ordered to by the firm. So then, while under cash disbursement system, it is the best to segregate general. Wait lang. Yun. Uh, while under cash disbursement system, it is the best to segregate general ledger in account payable from cash disbursement function as asset involved in the cash disbursement subsystem. It itself is the literal cash, such as it is controlled by the AP subsidiary ledger and cash account in the general ledger, meaning to say uh, cash disbursements cash disbursement itself depends on how much is recorded in AP subsidiary, and in effect the amount of cash recorded in the cash account in the general ledger. So basically, if this function be writing checks, the cash account and maintain AP are not segregated, an individual with such combined responsibilities could commit fraud against the firm. Then such recording that transaction has if what's was a payment for passive transaction. So next slide. Supervision. In the in the expenditure cycle, the receiving department is the area that most benefits from supervision. Large quantities of valuable asset flow through this area on their way to warehouse. Close supervision here reduce the chances of two types of exposure. Is the expansion uh, failure to properly inspect the asset and the theft of asset. The inspection of asset when goods arrive from the supplier receiving clerks must inspect item for properly quantities and condition. So for this reason, the receiving clerk received a blind copy of the original PO from purchasing a blind PO as all the relevant information about the goods being received except for the quantities and prices. Thief of asset receiving department are sometimes hectic and cluttered during busy period. So in this environment, incoming inventory as are exposed to thief until they are securely placed in the warehouse. Improper inspection procedure coupled with the inadequate inadequate supervision can create a situation that is conducive to the theft of inventories in transit. Next slide, please. Accounting records. The control objective of accounting records is to maintain an audit trail adequate for tracing a transaction from its source document to the financial statements. So the expenditure cycle employs the following accounting records is AP subsidiary ledger, voucher register, check register, and general ledger. The auditor's concern in the expenditure cycle is that obligation may be materially understand on financial statement because of the unrecorded transaction. Next slide, please. Direct access. In the expenditure cycle, a firm must control access to physical assets such as cash and inventory. This control concern So these control concerns are essentially the same as in the revenue cycle. Direct access control include locks, alarm, and restricted access to areas that contain inventory and cash. Indirect access must limit access to document that control its physical asset. So, for example, individual with access to purchase requisitions, purchase orders, and receiving reports as the ingredients to construct a fraudulent purchase transaction with the proper supporting document. A fraudulent transaction can be made to look legitimate to the system and could be paid. Next slide, please. So, independent verification by accounts payable. The if the AP function plays a vital role in the verification of the works other in this system have done. Uh, so copies of the case source document flow into the department for revenue comparison. Independent verification by the general ledger department. The general ledger function provides an important independent verification in system. It receive journal voucher and summary reports from the inventory control, AP, and cash disbursement from these sources. The general ledger function verifies that the total obligation recorded equal to the total inventories received and that the total reduction in AP equal to the total disbursement of cash. So next slide. So let's proceed to physical system to be discussed by Mr. Gamba.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Rodi. So now let's proceed with the physical system. So actually, in this part, the physical system as well as the computer-based system, this we will be focusing more on the purchasing cycle, but uh, it is very much similar to what has been discussed, but by our first expert. But in this part, we are to show the difference between the physical system or the manual system as well as the computer-based system. So actually, in the physical system, we begin here with a review of manual procedure and then moves on to deal with the several forms of computer-based system. So in this matter, the manual system are covered as a visual training aid to actually promote a better understanding of the concept presented by the previous section presented by our beloved experts. So, as I mentioned a while ago, the manual system is what we also call the manual purchase system. So, this part should actually help you guys to envision the relationship between the organizational units, the segregation of duties, and the information flows essential to operation and effective internal control. So I want you guys to take note that under this cycle, if we were to look at the DFD, we have a total of 6 swim lanes. So again, this was discussed a while ago. We have a total of 6 swim lanes, and these are vendor, purchasing department, inventory control, receiving, accounts payable, and lastly, general ledger. So in this part, I also want you guys to take note the what so-called files in the screen in each given swim lanes because I will also mention it upon the process as well. So let's start with the inventory control since inventory control is where the cycle starts. So in here, when inventories drop to a predetermined reorder point, the clerk prepares a purchase requisition. So those purchase requisition has actually 2 copies. So one copy of the requisition is sent to the purchasing department and the other one is placed in the open purchase requisition file. So what happens next comes in with the purchasing department. So in here, the purchasing department receives the purchase requisition. They sort them by vendor and prepares a multi-part purchase order for each vendor. So, as mentioned, we have 2 copies of purchase order, and these are sent to the vendor. So, one copy of the purchase order is sent to the inventory control, and the other copy of purchase order is sent to the accounts payable for actual filing in the accounts payable pending file. And one copy, the blind copy, is sent to the receiving department where it is filed until the inventories arrive. So next, uh, the receiving one. It is in the fourth swim lane. So in here, the goods arriving from the vendor are reconciled with the blind copy of the purchase order. So upon completion of the physical count and inspection, the receiving clerk actually prepares a multi-part receiving report stating the quantity and condition of the inventory. So following the receiving department, we have the next one, which is the accounts payable department. So in here, when the invoice arrives, the accounts payable clerk reconciles the financial information with the documents in the pending file. So they records these transactions in the purchase journal and post it to the supplier's account in the accounts payable subsidiary ledger or the voucher register. So after reconciling the liability, the accounts payable clerk transfers the sources or the source documents, which are the purchase order, the receiving report, as well as the invoice. So these are transferred to the open voucher payable file or the APOC file. So the last one will be the general ledger department, which is the very last swim lane. So in here, the general ledger department receives a journal voucher from the accounts payable department and an account summary from the inventory control. So the general ledger clerk reconciles and posts to the inventory and accounts payable account. So actually, with these steps, the purchase phase of the expenditure control is or expenditure cycle is completed. So now that we have taken the physical system out of the way, let's now proceed with the computer-based purchases and cash disbursement application. So again, as mentioned, we will be focusing more on the purchases since the cash disbursement application will be discussed by the next expert or professional that we have in the team. So yeah, so so now so to give you guys a full detail, we will go further in the DFD of this section. But uh, as mentioned, actually in this one, I will guide you through the steps. So as you can see in the screen, we have steps to be taken in order to make the cycle possible, as well as what given departments are involved in the process. So you can see it in the screen as well. So let's now proceed with the DFD of this section for the full detail. So first, the purchasing process begins in the data processing department where the inventory control function is performed. So in here, the information needed to create the requisition record is selected from the inventory subsidiary record, which is then flagged the quote unquote on order to prevent the item from being ordered again before the current order arrives. So in the first step, what is the role of the purchasing department? So upon the receipt of the purchase requisition, the purchasing department actually prepares here a multi-part purchase order, and those copies are actually uh, sent to the vendor as well as the accounts payable, the receiving, data processing, and the purchasing department's file. So for that is all for the first step. Now let's proceed with the second step. So as I explained just a while ago, a copy of purchase order is sent to the data processing and used to create a record in the open purchase order file. So the accounts or the associated requisitions are then transferred from the open purchase requisition file to the closed purchase requisition file. So in here, in the receiving department, when the goods arrive from vendors, the receiving clerks actually prepares a receiving report and sends the copies to the store with the goods to the purchasing, accounts payable, and data processing, which then leads us to step number three, wherein the data processing departments creates the receiving report file from the data provided by the receiving report documents. Okay, so then we have here a batch. So the batch program updates the inventory subsidiary file from the receiving report file. So the program removes the quote unquote on order flag from the updated inventory record and calculates batch totals of inventory receipt, which will later be used in the general update procedure. And finally, the associated record in the open purchase order file are transferred to the closed purchase order file, which leads us to the last and fourth step. So when the accounts payable clerk receives the supplier's invoice, he or she reconciles it with the supporting documents that were actually previously placed in the accounts payable pending file. So the clerk then prepares a voucher, files it in the open voucher file, and sends a copy of the voucher to the data processing. Furthermore, the voucher is filed or the voucher file is created from the voucher documents. So in here, a batch program validates the voucher records against the valid vendor file and adds them to the voucher register, or what we call open accounts payable subsidiary file. So file so finally, finally, batch totals are prepared for subsequent posting to the accounts payable control account in the subsidiary ledger. So that will be all for the physical system as well as the computer-based system. uh, I believe we don't have the next expert to tackle the next topic, but we reserved or pre-reserved a pre-recorded video of you guys, which is created by Miss Bulawan, to tackle and to teach you guys what is the different types of system that are used in the expenditure cycle, as well as the differentiation of those two. So that being said, that concludes our report or our discussion for today, and that concludes our webinar today. I hope you guys learned a lot. And actually, this event is specially made not just to give you guys some clear information in the said departments as well as the control or the cycle itself, but also to give you guys an opportunity to join us and be part of our team. So you have us, the experts in this meet. So we hope to meet you soon. And let's allow IT2 Corporation not just to be our working space, but also a place for us to exercise our profession more and expound our knowledge and skills comfortably with our coworkers and professionals in the working space. So let's help each other out. Let's succeed together and grow together. Again, this is all for now. We thank you guys for giving us your time, and we are looking forward to seeing you and working with you soon. So actually, the materials will be uploaded if you will guys check the link or the website of the IT2 Corporation. So you will see the materials there. And that is all for us today. Thank you. God bless and goodbye.